Hi guys, welcome to Paul's Book Review. And today I want to review a book that I found entirely fascinating. This will be the third book that I've reviewed now, and thank you for those who have been watching on this channel for the book reviews. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and click the like button down there and share it with your friends if you think that would be helpful. Now, another book that isn't very new, kind of behind the eight ball on some of these things, but a book that came out in 2012. I want to take a few moments and talk about, and that is a book called Quiet by Susan Cain. The subtitle is The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. So again, it's Quiet by Susan Cain. Excellent book. It's not as thick as it seems. There's a lot of references and notes in the back. But even if you read all of those, it's like 350 pages, not too bad. But it is, for me, it was a very fast read because it was very fascinating and educational. I am an introvert by nature, excuse me. My wife is an extrovert. And I would say if you are an introvert or if you love someone who's an introvert, maybe a partner or a spouse or a child, I would really encourage you to pick this up and read it. It isn't just written from an introvert to just say how wonderful introverts are. Rather, it takes a very, I want to be careful with this word, but kind of a scientific look at what it means to be an introvert. It's not simply looking at the characteristics of what makes up an introvert. Rather, the author goes through several scientific studies that have been done. Studies on behavior, studies on brain chemistry, even a look at the history of how we shifted from a culture that really exemplified people that would be considered introverts to now we have a very extroverted culture and we champion and celebrate extroverted qualities, and how and why that shift took place really just over 100 years ago in our society. And looking at the fact that being an introvert isn't simply a matter of you're just shy and need to get over it. Believe me, my entire life, I've been told I just need to be more outgoing and just stop being so shy and reserved. And what I found about this book was it was so incredibly refreshing and encouraging to say that, yes, there are times as an introvert that I need to act like an extrovert. I need to step out of my comfort zone on occasions. But if I'm going to live my life expecting some radical change in my personality, it's not going to happen. And not only that, but in this book, you realize that that's perfectly okay. It's not a fault. It's not a negative attribute. It's not a deficiency. It's simply a matter of how individuals' brains are hardwired. I never realized until this book that being an introvert, my brain is wired differently than my wife's brain. We are wired in very different ways. We react to our environment in very different ways, in ways that aren't simply me just wanting to be alone and read a book. But there's a lot of brain chemistry, brain wiring issues, some other factors that contribute to why somebody is an introvert and why that's not a bad thing. There are a lot of positives that can be tapped into with introverts. And so, again, if you're an introvert, this is definitely a must read. It will, if you're like me as an introvert, we live in a world that kind of looks down their noses on introverts and expects us to be extroverts because we celebrate and cherish extrovert qualities in our culture. This lets you know there's nothing wrong with you. You're perfectly fine. It's completely natural. It's how your body functions and is hardwired. And with that comes some tremendous positives that you can utilize for the greater good. But also, if you, again, as I said before, if you know or love someone who's an introvert, I would really recommend you read this as well, because maybe you fall in that trap too of just trying to help them come out of their shell. And it's not just so much a matter of coming out of their shell. Again, the author does talk about there are times when introverts need to act a little more extroverted. But being an introvert in and of itself is perfectly natural, perfectly fine. And in fact, if we deny being introverts, if we neglect our introverted tendencies, we will burn ourselves out because of how our bodies are made up. So, yes, there's a lot of academic information, but it's presented in a very readable fashion. Again, Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. If you're an introvert, you've got to read it. If you love someone who's an introvert, got to read it. Great book, highly recommend it. It's a little 10 years old now, but fascinating read. I think you'll really enjoy and find it to be an eye-opening experience as I did. So hope you get a chance to read it and hope you enjoy. And if you did read it or if you end up reading it, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know what you think or what you took away from the book. I'd love to talk about the book with you there. So thanks so much for checking out today's video, and we'll check back here next week with another review of another good or bad book. So far, they've all been positives. We'll see if I throw a negative review in there at some point. So thanks for watching and take care.